Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something today that most people don't explain right. When a man looks at a woman and says, "You're not like other women," that ain't a pickup line. That's a confession. That's a man admitting he's been living one way, thinking one way, loving one way, and suddenly here you come shaking the whole foundation of what he thought he understood. See, men are creatures of habit. We get comfortable. We learn patterns. We know what to expect. And when something fits the pattern, it doesn't move us. But when something breaks the pattern, it stops us in our tracks. Let me break something down real clear, because this right here explains why a man gets shaken when he realizes you're not like other women. Men are pattern people. That's how we survive. We learn routines, behaviors, reactions. We figure out what usually happens when we say this, when we don't call back, when we show effort, when we don't. Most men move through relationships on autopilot, expecting the same responses, the same emotional scripts, the same outcomes. And as long as everything follows the pattern, he stays comfortable. Comfort is dangerous because comfort doesn't grow love. It just maintains convenience. Now here's where the problem starts for him. You don't follow the pattern. You don't react how he thought you would. He pulls back a little, expecting you to chase, yet you don't. He takes longer to reply, expecting anxiety, yet you stay calm. He tests boundaries, expecting flexibility, yet you stay firm. And right there, something shifts in his mind because the pattern broke. And when a pattern breaks, a man starts paying attention. See, men don't fall for what they understand easily. They fall for what makes them stop and think. They fall for the exception, the woman who doesn't need instructions on how to be treated, the woman who doesn't turn love into a negotiation, the woman who doesn't confuse attachment with desperation. When you don't follow the script he's memorized from past experiences, his confidence takes a hit, not in a bad way, but in a revealing way, because now he realizes he can't play the same game. Most women he's known adjusted themselves to keep him. They tolerated confusion, inconsistency, and mixed signals. So he learned that minimal effort still got maximum access. But you come along and suddenly effort is required. Consistency is required. Intentions must be clear, and that shakes him because now he has to show up as a man, not just a presence. What really gets to him is this: you don't rush intimacy to secure commitment, and you don't chase commitment to justify intimacy. You're balanced, and balance is unfamiliar to a man who's used to extremes. He's used to either being idolized or ignored. You do neither. You observe, you decide, you move with purpose. And now he's curious because curiosity is born when predictability disappears. He starts replaying conversations with you. He wonders why your silence doesn't feel like punishment, but confidence. He wonders why your affection feels genuine, not transactional. He wonders why you don't compete for attention, but somehow command it. That's when he realizes you're not trying to win him, you're evaluating him, and that flips the power dynamic completely. A man is shaken when he realizes he can lose you without drama, without warning, without you falling apart. because now he understands that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. You didn't announce your standards loudly, you lived them quietly. You didn't demand respect, you required it by your actions. And that's the kind of difference a man can't ignore. So when he looks at you and says, "You're not like other women," what he's really saying is, "You don't fit the patterns I've relied on." You've become the exception to his rules. And exceptions force decisions. He either evolves to meet you or he exits because the mirror you hold up makes him uncomfortable. Either way, the shake happens because once a man meets a woman who breaks his patterns, he can never unsee the difference. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you why authentic confidence is the thing that really unsettles a man when he realizes you're not like other women. See, men are used to attention. We're used to admiration, validation, and reassurance being handed over early and often. Many relationships start with a woman trying to prove her value, explain her intentions, or earn a man's consistency. Over time, men begin to expect that dynamic. They get comfortable receiving without fully giving. But when a woman shows up confident without needing approval, it disrupts everything he thought he understood. Authentic confidence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue, compete, or perform. It's quiet. It's steady. It shows in how you speak, how you listen, how you walk away when something doesn't align with your values. A man feels that immediately. He senses that you're not seeking validation from him, and that makes him uneasy because now his attention is no longer the prize, your peace is. And men don't know what to do when they're not the center of a woman's emotional universe. Most men have experienced women who confuse attention with connection. They text constantly, explain excessively, and react emotionally to every shift in energy. Over time, men learn that inconsistency won't cost them much. But then you come along and you don't overreact. You don't chase clarity. You don't try to fill silence with noise. You allow space without fear. And that's when his confidence gets tested, because silence coming from strength feels different than silence coming from insecurity. What really shakes him is that you don't need to be chosen to feel complete. You're already whole. You enjoy his presence, but you don't depend on it. You appreciate effort, but you don't reward potential. Your standards are visible in your behavior, not your demands. And now he realizes something important. You can walk away without losing yourself. That awareness hits a man deeply because most men rely on emotional attachment as leverage. When that leverage disappears, he has to bring substance to the table. Authentic confidence also means you don't compete with other women. You don't compare, stalk, or question your worth. And that unsettles him because comparison is how insecurity usually reveals itself. When you don't ask who else is there, but instead ask, is this right for me? The dynamic shifts. You're not trying to secure him. You're deciding if he qualifies. That reversal forces him to confront his own value. A confident woman doesn't rush. She doesn't overinvest emotionally before consistency appears. She allows a man to show her who he is through time and action. And that patience, that restraint, that's what shakes him. because men are used to access being easy. When access is intentional, they pay attention. When affection has boundaries, they respect it more. He starts noticing how you don't adjust yourself to be liked. You don't shrink to be chosen. You don't become louder to be seen. You remain yourself in every room. And suddenly, he realizes something that unsettles him deeply. Losing you would be quiet, clean, and final. No chaos. No begging. No dramatic scenes, just absence. And absence from a confident woman feels permanent. So when a man says you're not like other women, what he's really responding to is your authenticity. You didn't try to impress him. You didn't audition for his attention. You showed up as yourself and let him do the work of stepping forward. That kind of confidence doesn't chase, it attracts. And that attraction doesn't excite a man, it challenges him. Ladies and gentlemen, let me explain why a woman who truly knows her worth will always disrupt a man's comfort zone, because this is where the real shaking happens. See, men love comfort. We build our lives around it. Comfort in routine, comfort in access, comfort in knowing what we can get away with. Most men move through relationships expecting familiarity, familiar reactions, familiar forgiveness, familiar patterns. They expect that if they pull back, you'll lean in. If they give less, you'll give more. If they mess up, you'll explain it away. That comfort becomes a cushion. And men get lazy on cushions. But when a woman knows her worth, there is no cushion. There is clarity. There are standards. There is structure. And structure makes a man uncomfortable if he's been living without discipline. You don't argue about respect. You require it. You don't negotiate loyalty. You expect it. You don't beg for effort. You move where effort is given, and that right there shifts everything, because now he can't relax in bad habits anymore. A woman who knows her worth doesn't threaten, she decides. She doesn't manipulate, she observes. She doesn't demand change, she responds to behavior. And that is terrifying to a man who is used to control, because control comes from emotional reactions. Control comes from fear of loss. But you don't operate in fear, you operate in value, and value doesn't panic. Value doesn't chase. Value doesn't compete. Value waits and watches. Most men are comfortable when a woman is emotionally dependent, when her mood depends on his attention, when her confidence depends on his approval, when her security depends on his presence. That makes him feel powerful. But you come in self-secured. Your happiness existed before him. Your peace was built without him. Your identity was formed long before him, and now he feels replaceable, not because you're disloyal, but because you're whole, and wholeness removes leverage. He notices that you don't tolerate confusion. You don't live in gray areas. You don't accept mixed signals as romance. You don't interpret inconsistency as mystery. You interpret it as disinterest. And that awareness shakes him, because now his excuses don't work. His charm doesn't work. His half effort doesn't work. He must either become intentional or become irrelevant. A woman who knows her worth also doesn't stay where she's not celebrated. She doesn't shrink to fit spaces that can't hold her. She doesn't silence herself to keep peace. She understands that peace without respect is just quiet suffering, And that mindset forces a man to evaluate himself, because now he's not just being loved, he's being measured. He feels it in the way you walk away from conversations that go nowhere. He feels it in the way you don't over-explain your boundaries. He feels it in the way you don't reopen doors that were closed for a reason. He feels it in the way you love deeply but detach quickly from disrespect. And that combination is rare, because most people confuse love with tolerance. You don't. So his comfort zone collapses. He can't be careless. He can't be casual. He can't be inconsistent. He can't be unclear. He must choose, and choice creates pressure. Pressure creates growth or exit. That's the shake. Because a woman who knows her worth doesn't just change a man's feelings, she changes his standards. She changes what he accepts from himself. She changes how he sees relationships. And once a man experiences that level of structure, discipline, and self-respect in a woman, comfort will never feel the same again. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about why consistency in a woman's character creates both safety and fear in a man at the same time. See, men are used to inconsistency being emotional. They expect mood swings, mixed messages, hot and cold behavior, and unpredictable reactions. Over time, many men learn how to navigate that. They know when to apologize, when to pull away, when to come back with just enough charm to reset the situation. Inconsistency becomes manageable, predictable even. But when a woman is consistent in who she is, not just how she feels, that throws a man off balance. Consistency means you don't change your standards based on how much you like him. You don't overlook red flags because the chemistry is strong. You don't relax your boundaries just because he had a good day. You show up the same way whether things are smooth or uncomfortable, and that steadiness sends a powerful message. This is who I am, not who I pretend to be to keep you. That kind of character is grounding, but it's also intimidating to a man who relies on emotional fluctuations to maintain control. A consistent woman doesn't love loudly one day and disappear emotionally the next. She doesn't punish with silence or reward with chaos. She communicates clearly, acts intentionally, and responds proportionally. And that creates emotional safety. A man knows where he stands with you. He knows what behavior is acceptable and what isn't. He knows the rules don't change based on your mood. That kind of clarity is rare, and it makes a man feel calm. But here's the part that shakes him. Clarity also removes excuses. When a woman is consistent, a man can't hide behind confusion. He can't blame mixed signals. He can't pretend he didn't know. Your reactions line up with your words every time. If he disrespects you, there is distance. If he shows effort, there is warmth. If he's inconsistent, access changes. That predictability forces accountability, and accountability makes a man uncomfortable if he's used to skating by on charm. Consistency also means you don't stay emotionally invested when behavior stops matching promises. You don't keep hoping someone will become who they said they were. You respond to who they are right now. And that discipline scares a man who benefits from second chances without change. Because now he realizes time alone won't save him. Apologies without action won't save him. Intentions without effort won't save him. He starts noticing how you don't overreact, but you also don't overforgive. You don't hold grudges, but you don't forget patterns. You don't create drama, but you don't avoid hard decisions. That balance tells him you are emotionally mature, and emotional maturity requires emotional responsibility. He can't bring chaos into your life without consequences. And for a man who thrives on emotional flexibility, that feels restrictive. What really shakes him is realizing that your consistency is not attached to him. It's attached to your values. You don't change who you are to keep love. You change who you allow access to based on behavior. That means he is not special enough to bypass your standards. And that realization hits hard because most men are used to being the exception. So now he feels safe with you, but also challenged by you. Safe because there's no emotional ambush. Challenged because there's no emotional loophole. He must be real. He must be intentional. He must be steady, or he must leave. And that pressure doesn't come from demands. It comes from your character. And that is why consistency doesn't just build trust. It shakes a man who isn't ready to meet it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me explain why men are truly shaken when effort is required instead of begged for, because this is where the illusion of control disappears. See, many men are accustomed to relationships where effort is optional. They've learned that affection